Dostoevsky's later masterpiece Crime and Punishment, published in 1866, further explores the notion of self-knowledge, or the lack thereof. The novel focuses on a young former law student who lives in poverty, named Rodion Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov's mother and sister are sacrificing a lot to try to help Rodion's situation and facilitate his success. His sister even plans to marry a rich man to help him. However, all this disturbs and upsets him even more. Raskolnikov is also deeply affected by a nihilistic, rationalist and atheistic vision of the world. Without the need to respond to religious or spiritual principles, Raskolnikov decides to kill and rob an evil moneylender. He rationalizes that the moneylender has acquired her wealth through exploitation, and that he, Raskolnikov, deserves the money more. He believes he can use the money to do good, helping his mother and sister, becoming a lawyer, and ultimately achieving greater good for society. Raskolnikov sees himself as a man of greatness and ruthlessness, someone who is above conventional moral codes, and thus justified in committing murder for the greater good. He proceeds to kill the pawnbroker, and then her half-sister when she accidentally witnesses the act. Throughout the rest of the novel, Raskolnikov finds himself tormented and filled with guilt and horror because of his actions. He realizes that he is not who he thought he was, not a man of ruthless power, but a tender and sensitive individual. Eventually, Raskolnikov turns himself in to the police to avoid going insane from guilt and torment. Through Raskolnikov, Dostoevsky critiques the notions of reason and self-interest as comprehensive methods for determining morality and self-identity. Raskolnikov had every reason to do what he did, and yet his actions were wrong and caused him immense pain and suffering. As in Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky once again criticizes the beliefs of nihilism, utilitarianism, rationalism, and egoism, beliefs that place all faith and relevance solely in the individual and base all efforts to maximize life and society on self-interest and rationality. Like Notes from Underground, Crime and Punishment focuses on the complexity of the human mind, and how we as observers and speakers aware of what we think we are often disconnected and inconsistent with who we truly are. Furthermore, our perception of others is often even further from the truth. Dostoevsky not only shows how Raskolnikov has a completely inverted and false self-image, but also allows the reader to relate and empathize with him. Rather than simply showing how a bad character becomes bad, Dostoevsky illustrates how a flawed character is not purely bad, and, in many ways, is very similar to us. Extremely confused and disoriented by the conflict of our internal psyche and our misunderstanding of that psyche. For all of us, the complex interaction between our conscious mind, unconscious mind, and the world outside of us is chaotic, confusing, contradictory, and perhaps impossible to truly understand. Those we fear or dislike may share a lot in common with us, and within us exists much of them as well. We do not know ourselves as well as we think. We pursue things we don't want and often fear what we truly desire. We are much less rational than we think, and exhibit a kind of madness every day and in every generation. Christianity and idealistic philosophies set us up for failure. Science cannot save us, and technology is not a means to escape our problems but simply an efficient transformation of them. Dostoevsky himself believed all of this to be true, and on one level he was at least partly right. However, at the end of Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov is serving an 8-year sentence for his crime. The novel ends by hinting at the possibility that Raskolnikov's story suggests Dostoevsky's belief that through suffering, faith, acceptance, compassion, and repentance, redemption is still possible. Although Dostoevsky's work is largely dark and tragic, it also contains a sort of epilogue of redemption. In his novel The Idiot, published in 1869, Dostoevsky reflects on some of his own personal experiences and ideals through the main character, Prince Mishkin. On one occasion, Prince Mishkin tells an anecdote about a man who recounts being arrested and sentenced to a mock execution by firing squad, an experience that almost exactly mirrors Dostoevsky's own. Prince Mishkin says the man had about 5 minutes to live. Those 5 minutes seemed to him like endless wealth. He calculated the time, allotting 2 minutes to say goodbye to his comrades, 2 minutes to think about himself for the last time, and the final minute to look around for the last time. He was dying at the age of 27, healthy and strong. As he said goodbye to his comrades, he remembered asking a rather irrelevant question to one of them, and being very interested in the answer. After saying goodbye, he used the 2 minutes he had allotted for self-reflection to think as vividly as possible about his existence. He realized that in 3 minutes, he would no longer be himself or anything else. He wanted to solve everything in those 2 minutes. Nearby, a church with a golden dome shone in the bright sun. He looked at the dome with terrible fixity, and the rays that shone from it seemed to him to be his new nature. In 3 minutes, ignorance and hatred towards this new, unknown thing that would come were terrible. However, he said that nothing was more oppressive to him at that moment than the constant thought, what if I don't die? What if life comes back to me? He thought everything would be mine. I would turn every minute into an entire era and lose nothing. I would calculate every moment and not let anything go to waste. In the end, this thought became such a source of anger for him that he wished they would hurry up and shoot him. Through this anecdote, Dostoevsky alludes to the idea that although life is often tragic, absolute purity and perfection are impossible, and suffering is fundamental. The conscious awareness of being moments away from losing everything is so overwhelmingly horrible that one would rather die than immerse oneself in the knowledge of how truly beautiful life is, and that it is on the verge of being lost forever.